YouTube, it's Zoe or Read by Zoe, and today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up and April TBR. Even though it's a little bit late, but whatever, better late than never, right? Right, so let's get started. I didn't read that much in March, but what I did read, I really enjoyed. I read 8 novellas, 1 novel, or one big thick book, and 1 graphic novel. First, I read the 8 novellas. I think I read them all in like a weekend. Not very long at all. I read them back to back to back, and they were the 8 last novels in the Tales from Shadowhunter Academy of Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, and it comes right after the events of City of Heavenly Fire and before the events of Lady Midnight. I would personally really recommend, if you want to read Lady Midnight, to read these novellas because they do give a lot of information that is really helpful when you go into Lady Midnight, but it's not necessary, so you don't have to go out and read all of them. But I really enjoyed them. They were really fun and they were very informative. So if you're thinking about reading them, I would recommend it. I also listened to most of these on Audible, and they got some really good narrators. Sam Heughan, he narrates one of them, and who else? Some really hunky English dude, I don't know his name, but I am in love with his voice. If his face matches his voice, he is the perfect man. There was Danny from Teen Wolf. First, I listened to The Whitechapel Fiend, which is the 3rd novella. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It was one of my favorites. I don't really want to tell you anything that happens in these novellas because spoilers, but you know, you meet some people who you know previously, so you don't really meet them. You get to see them again, and I loved it. Nothing But Shadows, which I also gave 5 out of 5 stars. I am so excited for the Last Hours trilogy, I believe, is the next trilogy that she is writing, and this gives a kind of a glimpse of what's going to come. Oh my gosh. The Evil We Love, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was kind of boring. It was about the Circle when Robert Lightwood was young and at the academy, and it was just really slow. But it was very informative. Pale Kings and Princes, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Bitter of Tongue, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. The Fiery Trial, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars, but I think if I read it opposed to listening to it on an audiobook, I would have given it a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 star rating. Born to Endless Night, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. So much cuteness happens. And Angels Twice Descending, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. And I sobbed so much. Cassandra Clare likes to rip your heart out, reach into your chest, play around with your heart, pull it out, then crush it, and then set it on fire and dance around it and hold a little sacrifice. She just is evil, but also really nice for writing these stories, but also evil for making me cry all the time. Obviously, I wasn't that mad at her for making me cry because right after that, I picked up Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, the first book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, and I loved it. I think this might be my favorite of her books, or a close second to Clockwork Princess, because they were just so amazing, both of them. I also really enjoy this cover. There were 3 things in particular which I really enjoyed. The first thing was how diverse this book was. There are people of different races and different sexual identities and different ways of thinking psychologically, and you go more into the backstory of some things, and I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed the romance. There were so many romances in this of all shapes and sizes. They were all written so differently, but I loved aspects of all of them. And the final thing was that this wasn't the typical, there is a big bad villain over there and we have to go hunt him down and kill him and win, huzzah, that sort of thing. It was more of a mystery. I cannot wait until we get the next book because I need it. And why did I have to read this right when it came out? Why couldn't I have read it like a year from now when the release date of the next book was closer? Because I am so impatient and I just want to know what happens. I am going to do an in-depth review and discussion of this book because I have way more to talk about. It should be up in the next couple of weeks right after my school ends, my semester ends, and I have time to actually sit down and film it and go into my feelings because there are a lot of them and I want to touch all of them and make sure that I express them well enough. Like I said earlier, I also read a graphic novel. It was Mouse Volume 1 by Art Spiegelman. I had to read this for my American literature class. I did a presentation on it and it went very well, got an A. I really enjoyed this. I don't think I've read a graphic novel before. Actually, I probably have. I just can't remember. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the artwork and I also enjoyed how Art Spiegelman told this story. Basically, it was about him. It's from his perspective, interviewing his father about what it was like to be a Jew during the Holocaust in Poland. There's so many layers and you don't know what is biased and what isn't, and I learned so much. Also, Art Spiegelman depicts people as different types of animals. So the Jewish people are mice, Nazis are cats, the non-Jewish Polish people are pigs. So it's really interesting. I really recommend you to read it if you haven't yet, and I didn't know too much about the Holocaust from the perspective of a Jewish person. I just knew it from history class, which was more the straight facts of what happened. Those are the books that I read in March, and now on to the books that I want to read in April, even though it's already like a third of the way through the month. All 4 of the books that I have on my TBR I've already started, so it should be easier for me to finish them. I am partaking in Camp NaNoWriMo this month, where I try to write an entire novel or most of a novel in this month, so I'm not going to be able to read as much as I'm going to be spending a lot of my free time writing. So this should be helpful that I've already started all of these books. The first book that I want to read is The Reptile Room by Lemony Snicket. This is the second book of a series of unfortunate events, which I read in elementary school. I read all 13 books, but now I am wanting to reread the series. I loved it as a child. I am catching so many things that I did not catch as a kid, and I'm happy I didn't catch as a kid because I would have had nightmares. I want to read maybe the 3rd one as well this month, which I think I can, because it's a children's book. Then I want to finish Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. I have it at school currently, so that's why I only have the cover with me. I am about halfway through. I really enjoy it. Maureen Keevy actually here on YouTube recommended for me to read it, and I started it and I really enjoy it. I love the female friendship that's in it, and the society is just so weird but really cool, and there's so much potential in the story. The next book is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I actually asked you all on Twitter which Colleen Hoover book I should read first, and a lot of you said this one, so I am reading it as an audiobook. I am listening to it as an audiobook in my car when I am driving. So far, this is really different than what I was expecting from a Colleen Hoover book, which isn't a bad thing. I am pleasantly surprised. I don't know what I was expecting, but it is not what I am getting. But I'm still having fun, and I want to read, I think, Slammed after I finish this one, or Ugly Love. Don't know which one, but I've heard great things about both of them. The last book on my TBR is... Are you surprised? Are any of you surprised out there? I highly doubt it. This is my 4th time reading Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I'm actually listening to it as an audiobook on Audible right now, so I'm not actually reading it, so it's a different experience. If you haven't read Pride and Prejudice before because maybe you aren't sure about the language, maybe you're finding it hard to get into, I really recommend Rosamund Pike's audiobook narration. She does such a good job. She does voices for every single character, and she just really understands the story, I believe. I am having so much fun listening to it, and I really recommend it because I love this book, and also Rosamund Pike, and also everything about this. Those are all of the books that I read in March, and the books that I am planning on reading in April. I hope you all enjoyed. Tell me down below what you are currently reading, and I will talk to you all in my next video. Bye!